My name's Clint. Learn Azure Data Engineering with me. I'm from Lavario. Let's talk today about Databricks and how you can deploy and run jobs via GitHub Actions. And we're going to show you how the ETL pipeline works in the next video. But for today, I want to show you how you can have different environments. We're going to do it in one Databricks workspace instead of having multiple environments in different workspaces, but the concept is still the same. So just run through this quickly and show you what we're going to do today. We're going to code promote between different environments. And we're going to deploy to, first of all, the user environment, then the dev environment, and the prod environment. And then we're going to show you what the GitHub environments look like in conjunction with our Databricks environments. And then we're going to show you that we've named our environments via the catalogs. It may sound a bit weird to you right now, but we've named like CRM_1_dev is our dev environment, and CRM_2_prod is our prod environment. You can have them in different workspaces, but we've decided to do it in one workspace. So let's show you what we're going to do today. We're going to do some initial setup via ClickOps, and that is to create our service principal inside of Databricks, a managed Databricks service principal. And then we're going to grant it the ability to create catalogs. And then we're going to get a PAT token for it and save it inside of GitHub Actions. Then we're going to show you how the Bootstrap works. The Bootstrap actually creates the catalogs via the service principal. And we'll also show you how you do that manually from your user target, should we say. So every user will have their own catalog, and then they can run their own jobs and create their own catalogs. We'll show you that later on. But then the automated way via GitHub Action is going to deploy to either dev or prod. Then it's going to run and create the catalogs. Then it's going to create the volumes. And then it's going to upload CSVs either to the, if it's a prod deployment, the prod CSVs will go into the volume, into the prod catalog. If it's a dev deployment, then the dev CSVs will go into the dev volume for the dev catalog. In the next video, we'll show you how we take those CSVs, we put them into the bronze layer, land that raw data in a streaming table. Then we hit the silver layer with a streaming table, which has the updated rows. Then we show you the gold layer as summarized view. So without any further ado, let's show you how that works. And let's just show you the setup initially via ClickOps. So I've got my notes here. I'll just show you what that is. So go to your Databricks workspace. And to start this whole thing off, what you want to do is create yourself a service principal. Now, you may not have access to this, so hopefully you do. Go to your service principal, click on a new service principal over here. So just follow where I'm clicking. Databricks managed, give it a name, etc., etc. Then once it's done, you'll see that you've got a name for a service principal. It can be any name you want. Then go on to click. For now, you can just click on status active. It doesn't necessarily need cluster creation if you're using serverless, but don't worry about that too much. Go to secrets. Create yourself a secret, which is the PAT token, and you can make it last from between 1 and 730 days. Generate that, and then what you're going to do is you can do the way I do it, or you can do it your own way. It depends how you like doing it. I was experimenting with environments and how you can have secrets in different environments, and I've created myself 2 environments in GitHub, a development environment and a production environment. So let's click on the development, and you can see that I've just called it SPN Job Runner PAT token, and I saved the PAT token that I created in Databricks and put it here. I did the same for production, so those are your 2 different environments within GitHub. Now that is important when it comes to your Databricks, your GitHub workflow YAML, and you can see that over here in line 22, I'm stipulating whether I'm using production or development environment based on the drop down that I get the user to choose when they want to deploy this Databricks bundle. So to show you, before I miss any steps, going back to this again and going back to here. Now, once you've created your service principal, you need to give it some rights on your catalog, on your meta store. So click on the gear under catalog. So I'm on the catalog tab here. And then I go to meta store. So just follow the clicks I'm doing. And you go to permissions, and you can see I've given that service principal all these permissions, especially to create catalog and such. Now, there's one more step which you don't necessarily have to do, but the reason I've done it is because I want to show you back in my Bootstrap under my notebook. You see that I've done something called grant manage catalog, grant all privileges on catalog. Now, you must remember that when this runs from GitHub Actions, it's going to run as the service principal. But the service principal is not necessarily going to have the ability to do grant manage on catalog. What it needs to execute this bit of line is account admin. Now, you don't have to do this. The only reason I've got this code in here is because I wanted to give myself full access to the catalog that gets created by the service principal, because I needed to drop it every now and then just so I could recreate the whole environment. But it's not necessary. Like, if you want to be able to drop that catalog after the service principal uses it, then you got to give yourself, either manually give yourself access to that catalog via the user interface in Databricks, or you can do it programmatically like I did here. And if you want to do that programmatically, the service principal needs to have a specific role. So if I come on here and I go to accounts.azuredatabricks.net, not every one of you is going to have access to get here based on your organization and your company, because it's quite a high level admin role. So if you don't have access, ask the person in your company who has access to this to change your service principal to have the role of account admin. Then you'll be able to do that. So that's the last thing you have to do there. And if you're using the new version of Databricks Metastore, you have to stipulate a location. And the locations can be something that you set up. If you go back to Databricks and I go to catalog and I go to connect and I go to external locations, the location I'm using to create my catalogs is this particular location here. I won't get into that today, but that's what you need to do. So let's show you how this works from, first of all, the user target, then we'll do the dev target, then we'll do the prod target. So we're going to work with these two folders today in this repository. It's called Databricks Lakeflow Declarative Pipelines. I'll put the link in the description of this video. And you'll see that we're working with these two different folders. And each one of these folders has got its own Databricks YAML. So there's one there and there's one there, just so you see where I'm clicking. And we're going to first of all do the Bootstrap. So I decided to put this into a different bundle because basically in order to build a ETL, which you can see over here, this is my ETL, which we'll get to in the next video. It references catalogs. And if those catalogs don't exist, then it won't build. So you have to build the catalogs first before you can build your pipeline, which references those catalogs. So you can see here, even this line, if that catalog does not yet exist, then this will not build. Okay, so it will not succeed. So basically you have to do your Bootstrap first, create your catalogs, your volumes, put your CSV files in the volumes, run that, make sure it's all good. Then you can run your bundles for running your ETL pipelines. Right, so let's do this as if we were the user now. So I'm going to go new terminal. In fact, I've got my terminals set up here. So I'm just going to go to this terminal, which is now checked out to the Bootstrap one. So if I click on, just to show you what it looks like inside of here, just so you see we've got nothing at the moment. I think I've deleted all my catalogs. Yes, there's no catalogs set up. So now it's a blank new slate. Let's come into our Visual Studio. So if you're a developer, you're going to come in here and you're going to say, all right, I'm going to deploy this to my Databricks workspace. Now, the reason it'll deploy under your own name is this. The reason is this. If I open up this Databricks YAML, because it's going to deploy this Databricks YAML because I'm inside of this folder here, then the default true is the user. So it's going to deploy to this target. And this target is going to create this catalog. And it's going to be pointing to the dev environment name. And the reason for that is inside of the notebook, what we really want to do with this notebook is execute it, and it's going to create a catalog if it doesn't exist. It's going to give some permissions to it. It's going to create a volume if it doesn't exist. And that volume, what we're going to do is put some CSV files into that volume. So this is what I got a function here for, copy files. I'm going to copy files from the path, the CSV route, into the volume, and I'll put the CSVs here. So under source datasets, I've got dev CSVs, which are much different and much less in volume than the prod ones. The prod one's got a lot more information, all just made fake data here, so nothing, no personal information here of real people. So what we want to do is then in the dev, so if you're a user and you want to develop, you can use the dev CSV files. But if we deploy to prod, we want to have the CSVs for prod. Obviously, in a real life situation, you probably wouldn't have your prod CSVs exposed here because that's obviously available to anybody, but that's not the purpose of this video. Now, going back to this here, we're going to show you that we've got a pipeline now, which is the CRM Works Setup Catalogs Dev. This is under my own name, as you can see, as even prefixed with my name there. If I click on run, what it's going to do is going to run that notebook I've just showed you. And that notebook is going to create, like we said, the catalog and the volume, and it's going to upload the dev CSVs to that volume. So let's give it a second. It shouldn't take too long because we're using serverless. So we go to here and we go into here. We should see that if we open this, it's going to run this catalog Bootstrap. So at the moment, there we go. So it's 16, 17 seconds in using catalog there. It's going to create the volume, and then it's going to execute this function, copy files, and copy it in. So you can see that it's now got that CSV inside. So if we go back to our catalog, and we'll see that if we refresh the page, there's my new catalog, and there's my new volume, and there is my new CSV. At the moment, there'll be no tables in there because we haven't run our ETL pipeline yet. So if you wanted to see your ETL pipeline here and run it, it's as simple as going to a different terminal. Oh, hold on, up here. So this terminal is this one here, which is checked out to this folder. And if we deploy that, then it's going to deploy whatever's inside of this folder, which is, in this case, got our ETL pipeline. And if we go back to here, we should see that pops up. So if I run that, then the tables will appear inside of my catalog, where I can do what I want with it, and it's not going to affect any other user. Okay, so that's the idea behind that. So then if we, in a second, once that completes, you'll see that it's going to build the diagram here, and it's going to have your streaming tables, and then your gold, your silver, bronze, and gold. There it is. So you got bronze, silver, and gold. And once it creates those tables via that code, which we'll show you in the next video, then you'll see that it appears in your catalog. So going to my catalog here quickly, open that. Let's just see if we refresh this. There you go. There's a table just come up. There's a table. There's a table. So there we know it's working. So that's what you do if you're a user. Now let's automate that process. So over here we can see that we're going to have a workflow dispatch. We're going to say either dev or prod. We're going to set the environment so that GitHub knows which environment you're deploying to in GitHub Actions. We're going to check out the code. We're going to set up the CLI on the runner, the Databricks CLI. Then we're going to deploy the Bootstrap bundle. So we're inside of this folder, working directory, and we're going to deploy to the target in question. In this case, we'll do dev first. And then we're going to run the Bootstrap job via Databricks bundle run catalog Bootstrap. And you get that name from here. Let me show you. There, line 4 is catalog Bootstrap. Back to our YAML. So that's going to run using our pat token for that environment, which we saved earlier, remember. And then we're going to deploy the, if you see now I'm in a different working directory, we're going to deploy the bundle for this folder, which is the ETL pipeline. Simple as that. That's all you need. So it depends on which environment you choose. It'll deploy to that environment. Let's see how that works. Going into GitHub now and going into our GitHub Actions. I'll click on my Databricks bundle here action. You can see that's the YAML associated. We just looked at that YAML. If I click on run workflow and from the main branch, run workflow. So now it's going to deploy. If I go back to my YAML for this particular, I'll show you both actually, this YAML. It's going to deploy to this environment, dev. And in this environment, it's going to go to root path, workspace, dev. Obviously for production, it'll be workspace prod. Just to show you where that lands inside of your Databricks workspace. go to workspace, expand workspace, dev. So it's going to land inside of here. And that's where your code will live. And that code for Bootstrap, for example, if you expand this and you expand that and you go to resources, this job here will be this job here, right? That's the one that just got deployed. And you can see that it's running automatically. So that's what you want. If you remember our YAML and the steps, we deploy Bootstrap, we run Bootstrap, and then we deploy pipelines. So it's deployed the Bootstrap. Now it's running the Bootstrap, which is successful. And then it's going to, if we wait just a few seconds, you'll see that it'll have another pipeline come up here called CRM. There you go, work_dev. There it is. So if we go to the catalog now, we'll see that we will have an extra catalog if I refresh this page called CRM_1_dev. Let's look for it. There it is. So it's created the catalog and it's got all that. So now this denotes our dev environment, and now we're going to do our production. So coming in here, we're going to run workflow. We're going to run it from the main branch, run prod, and run that. And same as before, exactly the same. Now if we go back to our YAML, it's going to deploy this one. And remember, it's going to run as the service principal. We're going to give ourselves permission. You don't have to give yourself permission, but just for ease of like deleting it and doing whatever, you can put your name there. And it's going to the same Databricks workspace, and it's going to go to the workspace prod folder. You can call that whatever you want. It doesn't have to be called prod, by the way. As long as there's one thing I might have missed, which you might come up against, is that when you go to this, it's best to create that folder first. So you're going to go into workspace, and then you'll go create folder, for example, and you'll call it dev work or whatever, something like that. So you'll see it comes up there as a folder. And then what you want to do is share. Where's the share button there? Share that with the service principal. And now the service principal is able to deploy into that folder. So you imagine that over here, if I click on share, you'll see that the service principal has got access to this dev folder. So that's important to give it access there. And you probably want to give yourself access as well, just so you can see what's going on. So let me delete this dev here, move to trash. Okay, now while we're waiting for that, let's just refresh this page. We should see that we've got more pipelines here. There you go, we've got prod, and we've got prod here, and prod ran successfully, and prod has deployed the pipeline. So I hope you've learned a lot today in that. I think I've covered everything to show you how we have our different catalogs, which denote our different environments. So here's our user, and they can mess around. You'll have, if you've got 5 developers, you'll have 5 catalogs for each one of your developers. And you can obviously tear those down. You can see that they'll be the owner of it. Whoever deploys it is the owner of it. And then over here, the owner will be the service principal and such. And then over in here in prod, you'll see that our prod CSV files has the prod data. It's got lots of data in it. Okay, so that's how you can separate the concerns having different environments with different catalogs, and then you can deploy the different data sets into those volumes, for example. That's it for now. In the next video, I'll show you how the ETL pipeline works. Thanks for watching.